And because I have a high self-worth, I don't care that everybody's laughing at me. I'm okay. One second. I'm okay. People like me. All right. First of all, this is our last session in this format. And we want to give up for Pastor Jamey Johnson, who's been with us all week long. Don't worry about me, you guys are stuck with me. You'll be sick of me by the end of the 15 days. But Pastor Jamey, give it up for Pastor Jamey. He's going to be with us one more day. Yeah. And, I'm sitting on the wrong side. There we go. That's what I needed. All right. And so, listen, we've got a couple of important stories to tell you, and we want you to listen in really clearly, okay? The first story is that there was a man who had made a business trip to Atlantic City. And as he sat there at the bar, he had some time to kill. A woman, very attractive woman, walked up to him and says, "Can I buy you a drink?" And he was a little flattered, so he said, "Sure." She came back, and then he took a drink, and that was the last thing he remembered. That was until he woke up in the bathtub full of ice, with the phone, with a message and a phone next to it that says, "Don't move, read this." And so he opened the letter, and it says, "Call 911 now, do not move." And so he picks up the phone and he calls 911. And oddly enough, the operator was oddly familiar with the situation. She says, "Sir, please don't move. Reach behind you and see if there's a tube protruding out of your back." He reached behind me, he said, "Yes, there is." She said, "I'm sorry. Your kidney has just been harvested, and there's some organ thieves that's been going around our city, and they've just gotten to you. The paramedics are on their way." Now, 15 days from now, listen very clearly because this is really important. 15 days from now, you will probably, we don't have to discuss this one more time, you will probably be able to pick up a phone, call your friend, and tell that story perfectly. How many people think they would be able to? This is one of the most popular urban myths that's been going around for the last 15 years. It never happened. Listen. But something happened to you throughout this story. But guess what? And there's a reason for that. We're going to talk about that. Something happened to you throughout this story. I just told you something that will stick with you, and in 10 years, you'll probably be able to tell this story perfectly. You may forget that he was on a business to Atlantic City. You may forget that he was at a bar or something like that. But there are three components to this story that you will always remember. One, the drug drink. Two, the bath full of ice. And three, that they stole his kidneys. There's something about a leader. There's a lot of great leaders, and I have to say this because I've been working with leaders in the Twin Cities for the last 18 years now. And most of them have little to no success selling their idea. I am ashamed to admit that the history of ULA has been, we have had a great idea, but not known how to tell our story in a way that has made it so that we could acquire the things that we need. The person who created that urban myth, I guarantee you they knew exactly what they were doing. And so what we want to talk about is making your story stick. If you're going to be a leader, we talked earlier today about arousing your economic engine and getting people to pay you to do what you're good at, if you're going to be able to do that, it's going to be because you organize your story in such a way that people will pay you for the story that you bring. Your resume is a story. Your life is a story. A lot of times, the reason they pick one person over another for a job isn't because one person is more qualified. One person knew how to tell their story a little bit better. And they knew how to demonstrate their life and organize their life in a way that demonstrated capacity and potential and power to do things. I was talking with, where's Deanna? There she is. I was talking with Deanna the other day, and she had applied for a job and she didn't get it, and we were sitting there, we had coffee about a couple months ago, and in our conversation, there was something that I believe I said and she caught on to, because she was saying something. I said, well, I'm an optimist by nature. That's how I naturally am. And we talked about a question that she was asked during her interview. Next time she's in an interview, she uses those exact words. She says, they says, well, what about feedback? She says, well, I'm an optimist by nature, so, you know, I tolerate feedback in order to better whatever she said. Next thing you know, she got the job. See, how you organize your story matters. Because all you are just another person going through their office. All you are another person on a paper to most people, to your college admissions, to your job potential, job hire, however you say that, employer, to your future prospective employer is really the right word. But that's all you are. It's how you organize your story that demonstrates how much power I don't care how much power you guys have. You guys have become the greatest leaders in the world. But you'll never be able to demonstrate it because no one will give you a platform, because you haven't organized your story in a way that makes them want you. There's a degree to which, as a leader, you have to think about, how am I selling myself? What is my story like? What do people think of when they think of me? This is a peculiar question. See, most of us just live our lives without thinking about what people think of us. Some people say, well, I don't care what nobody think of me. Quit lying. Everybody cares to some degree what people think. And so because what people think matters, now as a follower, it's irrelevant. If you're going to be a follower, it doesn't matter what people think of you. If you're going to be a leader, it does matter. Because you'll never be able to influence them if they think poorly of you. If they think you lack integrity, they can't trust you. People don't follow those they cannot trust. But in order to open the door, to get access to the position, to change people's lives, to have the power to help people, you've got to organize your story in such a way that makes people say, that's who I want. I want that person. I don't care what anybody says. I know my niece is applying for the job, but that's the person I want. So because 85% of most jobs given are given to someone that are known internally inside of the company. That leaves you the 15% chance of actually securing a job. And so what that means is you've got to be so well organized in how you understand yourself, how you understand your story, in order to captivate. You've got to become sticky. You've got to be that story that sticks, that lingers on in the minds of the people of power, so that you can acquire more power, so that you can carry out the leadership that God has called you to. Does that make sense? And so we want to take a few minutes to try to do our best to unpack that and what that looks like for you. Yeah? All right. And so, how to make things stick. There's a book written, and it's written by a gentleman, and it's called Success. And what we're going to do, actually, this is what we talked about at the break site yesterday. It's been a consistent theme. People will summarize your life in one sentence. Pick it now. That's what the quote says on the top of your page. People will summarize your life in one sentence. Choose it now. Don't let someone else choose it for you. What will they say about you? If you were to die today, what would people say about you? Well, you say, well, people that love me, you know, now people lie about people all the time, especially at funerals. Matter of fact, the person that did people the most wrong are often the most dramatic. Oh, that was my best friend. I can't tell you how many times I walk into a high school after a drive-by shooting, we say, well, that was my cousin. Really? They didn't even know you. But people try to claim something of something that a person gone by, and they try to glorify them. But the truth of the matter is, after that person is dead and gone, and the emotion is passed by, the legacy that they truly left behind will be all that remains. And so my question to you is, can you begin to design what people will say about you? McDonald's does a good job at this. I don't know if you noticed. They control what you think about them. Did you know that? They spend hundreds of millions of dollars a year to control what you think about them. Coke does the same thing. They spend Coca-Cola. They spend hundreds of millions of dollars to control what you think about them. And so, if they pay this much attention to what you think about them, I remember Guijuela, who used to be the former CEO of Coke. He says this. He says, 1,000,000 years ago, the world was created. He says, 1,000,000 days ago, humanity emerged. 1,000,000 hours ago, Jesus walked the earth. 1,000,000 seconds ago, the Beatles hit their first record album. 1,000,000 Coca-Colas ago was yesterday morning. And the question we are asking ourselves is, how do we make 1,000,000 Coca-Colas ago this morning? You're talking about somebody passionate about their brand. And they control everything that you think about them. How many know that Coca-Cola is bad for you? Raise your hand.
It's terrible.
How many know that people take Coca-Cola, and because of the strong acid content in it, they pour it over rusted nails and loosen, and that stuff goes into your body. But who thinks about that when they buy a Coke? Nobody. Why? Because Coca-Cola have mastered the ability to control what you think about them. That Dasani water, Coca-Cola owns it. I'm good for right now, but I'll get some later. Why? Because no matter how much negative press is out there, they pay hundreds of millions of dollars to squash it. If somebody says, I've got an illness due to Coke, they pay millions, they'll fly people in, they'll control that story. They control the PR realm. Thank you, sir.
Wow.
But the question is no matter who you are, if you're not a Coke drinker, they'll sell you Dasani. They don't care. They will find a way to get it. They want to be the #1 producer. They want to be the best in the world in liquid drinks and have people all over the world buying their products. That's all they care about. And how many people would agree that Coca-Cola is successful at what they do? How many people would agree that McDonald's is successful at what they do? How many know that McDonald's does not have the best food in the world?
Amen, brother.
Yet, we continually go there. My question is, if you will consistently go and support a restaurant that does not have the best food, and you know they don't have the best food, why do we do it? Because they have convinced us that they are the most convenient option for a hungry person. But they are everywhere because we don't eat them because they're everywhere. They're everywhere because we eat them. If people were to stop eating McDonald's today, amongst all of that bad press, remember 2004? All that bad press came out about McDonald's, supersized me. A guy documented himself and ate only McDonald's 3 meals a day for 30 days. And about 17 to 20 days in, the doctor says you will die if you keep this diet up. Yeah, they have grown since then. They're bigger now than they were in 2004. It's not because people want to be big. It's because they control what you think. Listen, this is difficult to understand. This is my problem with churches and ministries, to be honest with you. The Bible has a proverb, and it challenges us. It says, a wise person considers their steps. If you're creating a dream map for your life, think about where you're going. I know that's like overly simplistic. Don't just think about where you're going, but think about where you're going and what the effects will be of what you do. You are given choices. Pastor Jamey said earlier today, life is made up of moments. Moments are made of decisions. Live in this moment. Choose. Make the decision to capitalize on this moment to make yourself better. Now this is a very, 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 very complex topic, and I recognize this is for really, and we talked about this, we debated whether we were going to talk about this subject, because it's really for high-level leaders. This is for high-achieving leaders that really want to take things to the next level. And they're looking at their school and it says, what message do I want to be believed about me in school? And they look at their home, what do I want my parents to think about me? And they begin to take steps to control the messaging. They will bite their tongue. If you say, I want a peaceful relationship with my parents, you know that yelling back and snapping back would never achieve that. So what do? You say, I make a decision, not because they're right, because they're not. I'm making a decision to retain peace in my home, even though they're wrong. And I know that by yelling back, I'll feel better because I'll vent for a moment, but what I'll do is we'll end up with the same result and we'll have more conflict. So I'm going to make a decision to bow out of the argument, because I want to control what happens. And I know that prom is coming up, or I know that homecoming is coming up, and I'm about to get my driver's license, and I'm going to want to borrow the car. And so I better choose wisely which battles that I... See, most of us don't live like that. We don't think like that. We just live our lives and haphazardly, recklessly, whatever happens, happens. And now that they won't pay for you to get your driver's license, or they won't pay for you to do this, you're all shocked. You shouldn't be surprised by anything. If you start thinking like a leader, you will never be surprised. You know exactly what to expect, exactly what is promised you. But you have to think before you step. You have to make choices and own your own selves and the stuff that you do. Don't expect money from your parents after you just got done cussing them out. That's just slow. It is. But yet, we know we're going to need money tomorrow, and yet we'll allow this conflict to fester. Don't do it. Back off. Not because they're right, because you know what? 50% of the time they're wrong. That's just human nature. How many know that if there's a conflict 50% of the time, hey, give people the benefit of the doubt. You go 55, all right. We got some adventurous people here.
That's why I feel leader.
But take responsibility and say, even most conflicts won't control the environment. And I want you to think about that. It is so important that when you begin thinking about how you're viewed. We talked about this yesterday. Nobody wants to hear you complain. Even if your complaint is legitimate. Nobody wants to hear it. And people may love you, but they don't want to hear you complain. And if you don't complain another day in your life, trust me, no one will miss it. And guess what? If you get known as a complainer, that's all people will use you for, is a sounding board for their own complaints. But that won't satisfy you. You don't want to just be a trash can for other people's trash. If you're going to be a leader, you want to add positive. You know what? People stopped bringing me problems. I was terrible at counseling as a youth pastor. I really was. People stopped bringing me problems. Because when they brought me problems, I left them with a list and a strategy of what to do to get out of their problems. And they didn't want a strategy. They wanted their problems. They liked complaining about terrible things and pitiful things and bad things happening in their life. That made them feel good. There was a sickness. There's a sickness. I don't know what it is. And every time somebody's got a problem, they try to one-up one another. I heard people say, oh man, my uncle got shot. That ain't nothing, man. My cousin got shot in this alley. I'm like, that ain't nothing? Really? Trying to one-up each other. If you got a story, I got a worse story. What? How does that make sense? How does that gain you influence with the people that you're trying to lead? And so I want you guys to think before you act. What you do matters. The choices you make matters. Jesus says something very interesting. I think we're going to try to move on to this so we can get to our small groups. Jesus said this. He says that the children of this world are wiser than the children of light. That wasn't a compliment. That wasn't a compliment. The children of this world are wiser than the children of light.
That's the word.
Simply because when a person who's a non-believer wants something, they know how to flatter you to get it. They know how to smile at you. And he talked about, this was the conclusion of a parable about a wise servant, a shrewd servant, who the boss came and says, you're fired. And he says, all right, but you gave me a 2-week notice. So then he went and he began to work real hard and settle up the accounts with all of he was the administrative assistant, and his boss had fired him. He said, you're not bringing me any money. So he went and patched up all these things. He brought in this money, and he cut these people's debt in half. And he says, because I'm too proud to beg. That's a song, isn't it? All right, don't worry about it. All right. Ain't too proud to beg is the name of the song. But he says, I'm too proud to beg. And so I at least make me some friends so that when I'm out on the street, I got some people to hook me up. I got some people that owe me. And Jesus didn't say, oh, what a terrible guy to start cutting debts and doing all this stuff. He says, so make friends. That's what Jesus said. Influence people. Connect with people. Find ways to get on their good side. For the children of this world are wiser than the children of light when it comes to their own. Will you be wise? Will you figure out a way to be that aroma that draws people to you? Or will you constantly be a stench that stinks up the room? I want you guys to be leaders. I want you guys to draw people to you and to be effective. And so we need to somehow figure out a way over these next, we got a session on communication in a couple weeks. We want to find out a way to make your stories stick.